Well, hello, guys. Welcome back to another installment of the Unwatched Pile. I'm Stephen Billings, and as always, along with me is the host with the most, Andrew Cabral. What's up, man?
What's up? What's up? Glad to be back. We are once again back here for Unwatched Pile number 21. Nice. I didn't realize which one we were on.
What
I thought it was
sports?
20.
What sports player are you going to reference? Who has 21?
I got nothing off the top of my
yeah, I
head.
don't either. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, completely blank. You put me right on the
Legal
spot
drinking
there.
age? Yay!
The thing is, I can name older sports players that people don't remember, which is irrelevant to any conversation, really. People want current things. Sure. Ironically, we're on a show which we don't cover a lot of current things because we're going back in time to pick up things we bought when we were younger and finally watch them.
Not always.
That's true.
I mean, I guess technically younger, like maybe like a month ago younger.
Yeah, but my pick is something I bought like 4 years ago, which it's not that long ago, but it's earlier than some of the things we've talked about here before.
Yeah, it ranges. But if you're listening to this for the first time, if you've never watched an Unwatched Pile, what this show is a show where me and Andrew and a guest will come on and we will all pull a movie off of that Unwatched Pile. You know, that dusty pile that you said, hey, I'm gonna watch these movies. I bought it, I'm gonna watch it. And you're like, you never get around to them. So you finally you pick this movie and you watch it. You come on here and you discuss. And then after that, we all pick another movie in our collections that we have seen and pair it with it, make it a nice little double feature. That's what we do here. So this week, or this month, because this is a monthly show, we're bringing back an esteemed guest. He's taken the world by storm. He's on all your Blu-ray discs. He's in all your ears with 5 different podcasts at once. I'm being hyperbolic, but he's just doing so much. I always have a lot of respect for this man. Ryan Verrill, what's up, buddy?
How we doing? Taking the world by storm. God, how I wish.
Hey, dude, your voice and your words and your things are all over the world with Blu-ray releases now. How does it feel? How does it feel?
I mean, honestly, surreal.
It's
kind of crazy what's happened. I mean, since the last time we did an Unwatched Pile, my life is quite different.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking back to 2021, whatever it was because we started our podcast similarly time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from that point where we were doing this, doing Chasing Labels, you were doing Disconnected. And then we were both going head to head with interviews. We were both getting that interview. You got him. You got
dueling Sean Baker interviews.
Yeah. We were doing all these interviews. It was like Rocky, Apollo Creed, and then but yeah. And so you've just grown that podcast and have just expanded your reach. And like you said, it's like a surreal dream at this point. You're involved in the world that you started talking about. And that's, I know I'm making you feel uncomfortable talking about all this, but I just want you to know that it's, I said this, I think on a recent podcast, but it's just awesome seeing people that we have done work with do great things. So I've said a lot already, but if nobody knows anything about you, Ryan, please tell everybody a little bit about what you are involved in.
Okay.
Don't take too long.
Okay, so over on the Disconnected YouTube channel and podcast, I do a weekly live show on Thursday nights going over all of the weekly announcements in physical media, have a guest on, and we have some sort of discussion in film, whether that be like a deep dive on a director, top 5 random something, or like recently where we did a Disconnected sleepover, just played games all night. That was a fun time.
See, this is what I'm talking about, guys. He has sleepovers.
I also publish a magazine that comes out 10 times a year called the Physical Media Advocate. You can pick that up in a handful of retail stores across the U.S., anywhere in the world on Amazon, even in a store in Canada, and working on the UK right now as well. And then I co-own a company called Someone's Favorite Productions, where we are working on special features and producing interviews and producing discs and QC and helping with marketing and doing transcriptions and subtitling and everything for many of these physical media releases with my dear friend, Dr. Will Dodson. In the last year and a half, we have been on, I think, something like 25 25 releases that have already been announced, and there's more than 20 that have yet to be announced.
I got one of them there. I got the the animated
Felidae.
Felidae, yes.
Oh, from Deaf Crocodile.
Yeah. I got
Beautiful
that over there.
disc, beautiful movie. Love that one. Yeah, we have done way more than expected in the first year and a half, and I show no signs of slowing. So I think that's most everything. I guess I run a podcast network too. With I think at the moment we're at 23 or 24 shows. One more about to launch here soon. So check that out. someone'sfavoriteproductions.com.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Not my show, somebody else's show.
Well, yeah, and then on top of that, you have networked a bunch of podcasts into.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
And you started podcasts for like what Deaf Crocodile,
Mondo Macabro, the
TerraVision.
The Radiance podcast is on our network. The unofficial Vinegar Syndrome podcast is on our network. TerraVision, I produced that podcast. Yeah.
So busiest guy in the business, and of course he even has enough time to comment on the own show he's already on about other players that have the number 21. So this is what I'm talking about. Little crazy person here. Of course, some of our regulars. Humboldt is saying hi to all of us. And then also, I did a crazy new to me double feature today. Who Killed Teddy Bear and Poor Pretty Eddie. I know what the Kill Teddy Bear movie is, but I don't know what the poor. Anybody know these two? The second movie here, Poor Pretty.
I'm sure Andrew does.
Andrew?
No.
He's probably seen it. He just doesn't remember that he's seen it.
Probably have. But Who Killed Teddy Bear? I know is a Cinematograph release.
Yeah,
a recent one. They're just talk about recent. They're chugging out so many of those releases right now.
Looking great.
Started the labels. What are they up to, like 18 releases or something?
Yep.
Something. Yeah, there's gonna be more coming. Saturday will be March 1st, so there will be more stuff that we'll be covering next week. But yeah, I don't know the second movie. Maybe I just didn't.
We're gonna look into it. But all right, so getting into this episode, of course, like I said, we all picked unwatched films in our collections, and we always start with our guest, Ryan. Please tell us what you are watching from your unwatched pile.
My unwatched pile is very large. Obviously, I have far too many. And one company that I was right on board with from the very beginning is the company Anti-Worlds. Now, this was launched as sort of like a sister company to Indicator, all coming from the same place, all under Powerhouse, all the same packaging, all the same like attention to detail with the special features and everything. And everything that they put out for their first, I don't know, probably 5 or 8 spines were just some of the most compelling, modern art house cult style films. Really, really happy with them. And then they got very quiet for a while. And finally, they released a couple more titles. And I got them on release day and kind of forgot about it because they weren't in my regular rotation anymore. So I put them on the shelf and they started collecting dust. And one of the ones that I was so excited for is Murder Me Monster from 2018, the Argentinian film.
Not a sector of the world we get a lot of releases from.
No, and I was so stoked to see that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, please tell us a little bit about Murder Me Monster.
Murder Me Monster is a wild and weird movie that is going to be very difficult to explain. And I'm so glad I picked a very vocal show to come on and talk about this. So the movie starts, and this isn't, I'm going to do my best to not spoil anything, which means there's going to be a lot of blank spots in this, of course. Not a spoiler because it's kind of on the cover. This movie starts with some animals on the screen, and then it pans up from the ground, and you see a woman, and her throat is slit. This is a really interesting way to start a film, of course.
Yes.
And it's pretty well made at the beginning, and then it gets sort of folk horror after that part. You start looking into some modern way that they're examining like the countryside. It's taking place by the Andes, and they are trying to find out what sort of monster is killing these people. There's this storyline that develops about one of the local cops named Cruz, and he is having an affair with this woman who is married, and this woman's husband is the main suspect of these killings that are happening, and he has some mental issues. So you see him sort of breaking down, going across the countryside. There are these really like surreal scenes of fires in these like really nice torches just out in the middle of the forest in South America, just for no reason. And he's like running down them and then disappearing for a little while. And this whole time, they are doing this really great thing with imagery throughout this film with reflections. Some people are probably not going to catch this till about halfway or 3/4 of the way through, but most of the film, most shots have either a reflected image. The whole opening is scenes of mountains that are just symmetrical from the very middle across both sides of the screen, or there's lots of mirror shots. There's also lots of lakes and bodies of water that are reflecting elsewhere. And it is all leading you to this idea of repetition, which becomes, funny enough, a major plot point. And as it turns out, this main suspect that we have, his name is David, and they think he is the killer here, but he gets sent away to a mental hospital, and the killings keep happening while he is incarcerated at the mental hospital. So it can't possibly be him, and won't spoil much more about the plot itself after that, but as it turns out, there is an actual monster, and the term "murder me monster" is used in the film, and so it's not like questioning why we're getting that title. But overall, it's pretty well made. I thought it was a very unique story. It wasn't a masterpiece or anything, but I think it fits quite nicely in their collection of like modern art house cult titles that a lot of people are probably going to enjoy. It very much fits in like the modern festival circuit type of films.
Yeah.
One of the things I really want to point out, my appreciation for South American casting. Films like Terrified and When Evil Lurks from the director Damien Rugna are some films that have done very well with American audiences over the last few years. And this is very similar in the fact that they always seem to they cast very normal looking people, which is not something that happens in American casting very often. They're always looking for the prettiest people on the planet. And everybody in Murder Me Monster are either like very unique looking or just downright, like a lot of people would say that these people are nowhere near attractive. And it makes the story feel that much more realistic. And it's this ongoing pattern I'm seeing with like all South American films stick in this lane where we're genuinely going to pick the best person to act out this story. We don't care what they look like, and let's put them in there. And it really hits home for this movie because, again, there's a lot of images that are used in this, a lot of reflections, a lot of very important imagery. And without these very normal people, the story could have taken a little bit of a distracting walk away from that. And I was pretty happy that they stuck with this. Yeah, well made, pretty good story. The score is very interesting. I think a lot of people are going to be wishing they explained a little bit more, but I kind of love that they don't. It seems like modern American films will bury you in exposition, and a lot of modern international films will not and make you fill in the blanks. And thankfully, this one makes you fill in some of those blanks. It's a good movie, a lot of good extras on it, and check out Murder Me Monster from 2018.
You got me, man. I do want to check it. I mean, like, yeah, I agree with you. I think international cinema seems to be more into like vague, more vague than to the point. I think leaving the audience up to imagination seems to lend itself to things that last longer, that have stability. So that's always a good thing. We got some comments here. Humboldt wants to check it out, but apparently Acres of Movies has seen the movie and does not like it. 3 out of 10.
Cool. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that sounds great, man. It's I like, it sounds like it's a mix of murder mystery with a little, like you said, a little bit of folk horror kind of thing, artsy, art house. Anything to add, Andrew?
No, I haven't seen it, so I don't know much about it. I'm trying to think of other Argentinian films off the top of my head, and I for some reason completely
go to
blanked.
one of them. What's the projects Martin Scorsese do for Criterion
projects?
There's probably an Argentinian film in one of them sets. It's
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't. It's interesting. We don't talk about it very often, but a lot of South American cinema doesn't get a lot of spotlight, especially when it comes to just theatrical releases here. Like pretty sparse. But even like home media releases, it's pretty much in the boutique label realm, which is where we've seen a lot of South American and even just foreign language cinema in general. But South American cinema, like Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, other places like that, Colombia, we don't see a lot of. We don't just see a lot of that. A lot of that is discovered through physical media.
Yeah, and like you said, this is a company that's kind of connected to Indicator, and they've been putting out a lot of Mexican films. So they've been looking in that region a lot lately over the last couple years, trying to dig up some stuff. So
yeah, and it's very interesting because we've had the guys from Indicator on here a couple of times, and we did mention that it's like you guys have been kind of exploring Mexican cinema now for a few years. With what's the luchador films that they put out, Steven? Santo, right?
Yeah, the Santo films.
Yeah, they put out a few of those films and a couple of old, like deeper cut horror films, like La Llorona and the Phantom Monastery, I believe, was a Mexican film as well. And it's an unexplored area of foreign cinema that we don't get to see a lot of, which is interesting to explore because it's been around seemingly for decades. So it's nice to explore it.
Yeah. Fantastic, man. All right. Well, we'll come back around to Ryan to tell us what he's pairing that with. But we're going to now go to Andrew. Andrew, tell us what your Unwatched Pile pick is.
Well, I think we hinted at it last time or many times here on
I forgot. I made you watch this movie.
That's a little forced there. I've been wanting to see it. It was going to eventually end up on
a nudge
episode.
A nudge, like a year-long nudge.
The thing is, I've had it in my collection for, like I said, for about 4 years now. And Stephen, you had seen it long before I obviously have, and you had told me about it years before I even got it. And that's the movie Afterlife by Hirokazu Koreeda. This is the Criterion Blu-ray edition here, which came out several years ago. I think 2021 it came out. Yes, that's the copy right here on the back as I was squinting at it. And that's probably around the time where I bought it. But Stephen, I think you had probably seen it before then.
Yeah, I was going through a Koreeda like phase of just wanting to watch everything that I could get my hands on. I'd gotten that set from the Arrow Academy set with the 3 films. I watched all of them and was like in love with them films. And then Shoplifters came out. I went and, Telluride Film Festival, met him there, and I was just like, I love this guy.
Yeah, that was when Shoplifters had come out around that time, which still I don't think has a Region A release, if I remember correctly.
Think so. Ryan, do you know?
I believe it does not.
It does not, which is still shocking to me because it was critically acclaimed when it came out. I thought somebody would pick it up for distribution at this point, even
the rights to his movies are weird. It's like,
but it's his most recent films. I believe Monster Monster has a Blu-ray releases, and then even the one he did before then, I think, has a Blu-ray release too.
Broker has got
Broker's got a Blu-ray release. Yeah. And obviously Afterlife is an older film from his. It came out in 1998, which is it's a while ago for many of us here. At the time, I was 11 years old, so obviously I wasn't watching Japanese cinema at 11 years old. I wasn't cultured enough, I guess. The closest I was
you were getting ready to watch Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Well, that didn't come out until 2001.
A couple of years later, you were.
But at the time, I was maybe watching Japanese English dubbed anime on Cartoon Network in the afternoons after school. That was probably as close as I was getting to Japanese cinema at the time. But
them are both really good as well. Maraboshi.
Oh yeah, Maraboshi and Erdal. Erdal, I do have.
Yeah, Erdal.
I have it on my shelf somewhere. Yeah, that was actually the first Koreeda film I watched and bought.
That's a weird one to be the first one you watched.
It is because it feels so different when you watch his other stuff.
Yeah,
they are existential and they are very very low key, very focused. but it's still the subject matter is different. But in Afterlife, I know, Steve, you've talked about it here on Chasing Labels a few times. It's a movie dealing with, as the title suggests, the afterlife, but it's an interesting take on it. So the movie is incredibly it feels like an indie film. It's low budget. It's all set in one location. There's a mix of professional and non-professional actors. The way the cinematography feels, it feels almost like a documentary at times. And the movie centers around this idea of people passing on from the living world, our world, to the afterlife. And the movie does a good job, really an excellent job of not really identifying with any type of theological philosophy, any type of religion, any type of anything like that. So the movie's just kind of open to this idea of when we pass on, we go to another plane of existence. But in this case, in Afterlife, the people are kind of at this fork in the road, this way station, if you will, this kind of holdover place where they have to decide which memory from their life do they want to take with them to the afterlife. And in doing so, they have to reenact it through making a movie about it. And what's interesting is that in the way in which they do that, I don't want to give away too much, is that there's a bunch of people who are kind of like these workers who help assist them into this method and into this afterlife. They help them make the movie. They help them choose which memory to take, which memory to choose, and which memory to make into a film. And the movie is incredibly simple in that regard. Like, you're just seeing people talk about memories from their lives or which memory they're going to choose, and the people who are assisting them just sit and listen to them. And what's interesting is it's people from all walks of life, young, old, people who have died in various circumstances and all that kind of stuff. And the movie is incredibly straightforward in that regard, incredibly honest and incredibly human, and incredibly genuine. That's what I really loved about this movie, is how genuine it felt and how humane it felt. Like, it's very human, because people are all like reminiscing about their life, reminiscing about loved ones, reminiscing about moments of their lives that they remember so vividly. And it feels like, memories start to turn to dreams, and dreams start to turn to memories. I mentioned that on a recent episode of Chasing Labels. I was discussing some movie that felt very much like that. And this movie made me feel similar to that regard. So the movie itself isn't so much plot focused as it is theme focused. And that may turn off a lot of people. There's no real frills in this movie. Like I said, it's shot in one location, low budget, documentary-esque style, very, cinema verite, if you will. But the movie's so beautifully genuine that's what really captured me. And there's something so pure about this movie. But yeah, and, there's a lovely, like, I think 20-minute or so special feature on here of Hirokazu Koreeda talking about the making of this movie, why he was making it and what the inspiration was behind it and how he shot it and all that kind of stuff. And he mentioned kind of this he just let people kind of go off and just talk naturally. Like, he had them kind of improvise a lot of things. He had the non-professional actors just kind of mingle with the professional actors and just let them work on screen. And it comes off like that, like regular people talking. Yeah, it's an incredible movie. It lives up to the reputation that Steven laid out, if you will.
The pestering you for
yes,
forever.
It is, yeah. If you go onto the Letterboxd, you'll see it's very highly rated by many people, and rightfully so. It's a
I'm going to out him because it's funny to me. But
yeah.
Aaron West, who we did an interview with recently,
I saw that, by the way. I know where you're going.
He gave it a 1.5 star.
Yes.
And if you read his review, he says, well, I fell asleep through this, so I'll give it another try someday. And I'm like, so why did you give it a star rating at all? If you didn't really
there's a lot of people who do that. I understand.
No.
But to be honest, it is a movie that is not incredible. That's why I said that it may not be for everyone. I want to emphasize that the style of the movie. I
know Aaron well enough to know that if he likes Ozu films, that he has no problem with the type of movie that this is.
Right.
Very Ozu, because there's no frills in it. You know what I mean? It's so incredibly human based.
And what you didn't touch on a lot with what you brought up the fact that they have to use filmmaking to recreate the memories.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the thematic thing that I thought you would be very into, was the fact that not only is it a film about humanity and like kind of zeroing in on why, like looking at memories and like what makes life memorable and worth living and things, but they also use filmmaking as a way to represent that. So it's also, I think, commenting on filmmaking.
What is
and
interesting
what filmmaking represents to the world
yeah,
too.
and that's part of it, but the film really does not emphasize that part of it too much. Like, it's part of the movie, but it's more so about the other stuff around that filmmaking, like the memories and the meaning behind the memories. And you can see certain connections when it comes to everyone's memories within it. Most of them are really centered on, memories of being around people that they love and care about the most, whether it's parents, whether it's your spouses or other kind of loved ones, and various ages too. Like, some people recreate things from when they were from their childhood. That's a cherished memory. So it really varies. But there's just this human connection, how like we're all trying to seek out and preserve this idea of love and happiness and human connection and things like that. That's definitely a theme throughout this movie. There's a little bit of plot in the film with the people who work at this kind of wayward station of, funneling the afterlife to the next world.
It's the subway. It's the train station from Harry Potter. It's the one at the
Kind
end.
of is,
or
even
like that.
Even like the boatman on the river Styx. Want to get mythological about it. Kind of funneling people to the afterlife. But it's done so with so much care and thought, and these people kind of treat it as if it's a job, but it's also not a job because it's something so unique. And what's interesting, there's no fanfare about it. You know what I mean? Like, every time you see movies that deal with like funneling people to the afterlife, there's like there's bright lights and people wearing wings and there's the choir of angels. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not stylized.
There's no stylized in it. It's a very practical look at, just moving on to another plane of existence, which is both, melancholic but also beautiful at the same time. It's an interesting film. Very fascinating in all of its things. But like I said, the style of it may cause people to disassociate with it. It's also very repetitious, and like you're just kind of hearing people talk for a large amount of time, giving it that documentary style. But yeah, I'm definitely glad I finally got around to seeing it. It makes me want to get all of Koreeda's work, which is a little bit of a chore because you got to bounce around from region to region to get all of his stuff at this point. But yeah, that is Afterlife.
Ryan, any thoughts? I don't know. Yeah, have you seen it?
I don't think I've seen Afterlife. Koreeda, though, is a master. There's so many that he's done that are incredible. And funny enough, everybody brought up Airdoll earlier. I'm going to make a slight reference to that one when I talk in just a few minutes. I definitely want to see this. I have been going down a rabbit hole of like, not quite Afterlife movies, but sort of adjacent, where it's like Last Night on Earth type of movies. And there's so much, like, even just saying existentialism doesn't fully grasp the philosophy of, we know the end is coming, and how do we choose to embrace that? It's so different than just basal existentialism, because that the knowledge itself changes the way you approach even the filmmaking to tell the story, which makes it so much more interesting. Very eager to see this, but fits a lot into other things I'm researching right now.
Existentialism is a fascinating subject because it's been around in philosophical thought for a long time, probably centuries at this point. And it was interesting because we keep going back to there's no answers to a lot of existential questions. Like, we're still battling with our idea of our own existence and what the meaning of life is, and what the ultimate, ending of it all is too. So it's a fascinating subject.
Fantastic. Well, I loved your pick. So we'll move on to my pick. The movie that you see, when the part of this deal was, I made him watch Afterlife finally, and he had to pick a movie from the list of my unwatched films. So he decided, in very Andrew-like way, to pick the oldest movie on my list, because he's a big classic film fan. And so he picked the Frank Capra film, You Can't Take It With You. Of course, I got this on 4K from the humongous Frank Capra set here that I think all three of us own. So this was the first film I've been able to get to in this set. I will say right off the bat, there is not a lot of features on it, which is a little disappointing, but the one they have on it has Frank Capra's son, Frank Capra Jr., on here, and he talks about his dad and things he learned from that time period, stories he heard from his dad. So that was really nice. But getting into this film, you can't take it with you. You got Jimmy Stewart's in this, along with Gene Author, and they're in love. Jimmy Stewart's from a wealthy family, and Gene Author is from like a kind of eccentric family. They're all kind of, some of them are actual family, some of them are like friends that have become family. It's a really very not Ozu, but very Koreeda kind of thing. You know, Koreeda's films, have a lot of unconventional families, and so they're both in love and they plan to marry. So of course, when that happens, you got to get the families to meet. So they make a plan to have their families to meet, but in doing that, it kind of goes wrong, and you get a clash of social class clash in this film, and it's very broadly funny. It's very, which a lot of Frank Capra films do really well. They blend that kind of broad comedy with human emotion, and it's not too over the top. It's just, it's something that you can laugh at, but you can also feel it and not just be like, that's goofy, So I really enjoyed this. I don't want to get too much into the minutiae, but this is, I've seen a handful of Frank Capra films. I've seen, of course, It Happened One Night is probably my favorite still, along with things like Mr. D Goes to Washington, or Mr. Smith. I combined two movies. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Really liked this film. Anybody? I know, Andrew, you've seen it. Ryan, have you seen?
I don't think of this one, but It Happened One Night is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And just honored that I get to be here the night that you announce your new podcast, Factor Capra. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. I would love to do a Frank Capra podcast. That'd be incredible.
Of course you would. Of course you would.
Yeah.
No, Frank Capra is somebody that it's like it's one of them filmmakers where it's like every time you watch a new one of his films, even if it's not considered one of his like all-time greats, it's like you get something out of it. You're like, God, it was still enjoyable. Like it's like William Wyler. William Wyler's the same way. A lot of his films, they're just all good. Like, Michael Curtiz is the same way.
What is interesting about, a lot of Frank Capra's work, at least a lot of the most well-known stuff, is that it's so incredibly universally human in terms of themes, in terms of characters, in terms of situations, that, a movie from the 30s is still relevant today, which is endlessly fascinating to me. Because, I believe, the movie that Steven's talking about, You Can't Take It With You, is from the 1930s. And the way he just basically said it, it's like how, like, the concept of, two people falling in love and getting together and having their families meet is a concept that still happens in today's world.
Well, it's just like It Happened One Night is a foundational, screwball comedy.
Right.
Just like, this film is a kind of a foundational, this scenario is something they probably cemented very early on.
And then how many movies, like you're saying, like how many movies took that same premise and then just redid it? I mean, and they perhaps redid it with different cultural context. Like I'm thinking of, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Don't talk about too many movies.
Yeah,
I got to do a
but I don't know. I don't mention.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's just say a lot of movies have taken that concept and then kind of re-engineered it for the culture of the time, even all the way up to today. But I love Jimmy Stewart. The more of his work that I've seen over the years, the more and more I realize that he's probably one of the greatest actors ever. Especially, it's interesting contrast from his pre-World War II work, which is like his Frank Capra work to like the stuff he did after, when you got to see him in doing a lot of westerns and doing like war movies and stuff like that, and doing it more kind of darker and grittier films. You know, he did a lot of Alfred Hitchcock stuff after the war. It's very interesting if you look at, you know, Jimmy Stewart's life and whatnot, and how things change with it due to his experiences in World War II. He was one of several actors who served during World War II. So, you know, his experiences like changed his outlook at life drastically during that time. And even after that, he would do "It's a Wonderful Life," which is probably Frank Capra's most classic work. It's shown every single year around the holidays. I know I watch it. It can't escape it. Can't escape it. And it's still universally relevant to today. I'm curious what you're going to pair with it.
You weren't going to guess what I was going to pair, by the way.
No.
It's not an obvious choice.
Okay.
But also Lionel Barrymore, who plays the kind of the head of the household for Jean Arthur's. It's her grandfather, and so he's kind of the leader of this household full of eccentric people that include like his son and his wife and like just, you know, their friend who makes fireworks. They make illegal fireworks in the basement and like shoot them off at all times of the day. And like there's one girl that's like dances all the time. She loves dancing. It's a really, you know, like this is just a sneak peek. I almost paired this with Addams Family, because I was like, the family dynamic, the Addams family is this family.
Very much so. They're so eccentric and over the top. And what's interesting is the movie's such a social commentary on like, you don't have to be the prim and proper Jimmy Stewart family in order to be considered quote unquote normal. It's taking the concept of normalcy and throwing it out the window, which is a very kind of modern thing where we're starting today to kind of embrace more eccentricities and more uniqueness in people, you know, try to, you know, take these ideas of old school tradition and throw them out the window, realizing that's mostly nonsense. But this movie was doing it in the 30s, which I think is kind of bold.
Lionel Barrymore's character was very much, you know, just kind of living life, you know, he was taking in people and letting them, you know, have their passions as their way of life. I mean, one of the best scenes in the movie is early on where a government man comes saying he owes taxes, and he just says, "I don't know, I don't pay the government money. What is the money for?" You know, he's just like, he's like, "Well, you know, you got to pay for the president's salary and government." He's like, "Not with my money." You know,
which is very interesting because a lot of people still feel like that today.
So there's, you know, it's one of them things where it's, you know, he's got his way of life that he's living and going about it, and it clashes with the way of life of essentially, you know, at the time modern capitalist, you know, family that's made really wealthy family, you know. So there's that clash. So it's really good. It's like I said, it's been redone many times in different ways, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. So but back around to Ryan. We got to, you know, before we get to your pairing, I didn't mention that I said this to you off screen, but the monster in your movie.
this is a really good time because this is what I was about to talk about.
It's a sight to behold.
Yeah, so the monster in Murder Me Monster is at the same time very vaginal and very phallic, which is an odd dynamic to have at the exact same time. But funny enough, I'm so glad you brought it up because this is what I tied. Wow, that's going to sound like I was about to recommend an adult film. What I really wanted to talk about is that this movie is oddly sexual, and not in like the erotic way. It's more of in a vulnerable way. It's very much like putting people in real life situations of, like I'd mentioned, there was the affair that happened in the film, and they show not like penetration or anything, but like the aftermath of an affair and how that hurts these individuals through the act of sex. And it has a couple scenes where it's so vulnerable. Like the female in that affair mentions that she loves to see the other individual dance. And this being like a macho law enforcement officer who's been on the force for years, he's clearly like a quote manly man. And they show him multiple times in the film just like violently dancing with his hands. Like, that's one of the things. He is able to make himself vulnerable for this woman. And that, when I was thinking of the double feature, is exactly what I wanted to clue in on. And I love that we talked about Airdoll from Decanalog earlier, because the pick I wanted to talk about is also from Decanalog. So thank you, Elijah Drenner, for picking amazing movies. But I really wanted to talk about Amigo.
I was thinking about this movie when Jesus. Okay, yeah, awesome. Yeah,
this is from Spain, and it is about two friends. And right before the film starts, one of the friends and his wife and his child and his friend that is in the movie with him, they all get in a car accident, and the wife passes away, the child passes away, the friend just doesn't get a scratch, but the main character is bedridden, can't speak because he has fluid in his lungs, and he is essentially unable to do anything without somebody helping him. So the friend that was not harmed is going to be there to help him. And if you are an individual that just had your entire life taken away from you, you're going to be very vulnerable in this situation. And this movie takes it to this really interesting level where there are things that start happening that make you feel uneasy, that the friend that was not hurt in the accident kind of feels like things are happening, but he's misremembering. So it's like psychological gaslighting. And in a film where you're talking about there could be a monster harming this city, there's a lot of that same sort of psychological gaslighting there, where your husband is mentally ill, he's clearly the suspect here, is something that is a motif that we see in many of these movies dating back for the last 100 years. But these two would make a really interesting double pairing when you start looking at, you know, people being in vulnerable situations and how we take advantage of people in vulnerable situations that are, in a way, like oddly not erotic, but like oddly sexual, in a way where like this friend that was damaged in the car accident and
predatory
in a way, yeah. But even just like putting your body on display, this friend that was in the accident, I'm 6'5", and this friend is very tall, and he has to take a bath in this tiny bathtub, and the friend that was not harmed has to come in here and literally give him a sponge bath and lift him out of the bed. I couldn't have anybody do that for me. I'm a giant man. And so watching this, unfold on screen, and then watch this friend feel like he's being manipulated in some way, when you all know as the viewers that he's like basically paralyzed, it's a very isolating vulnerability that you're watching. And the feelings that come out of these two movies sort of make you feel the same thing. It's a lot of like gaslighting the viewers in a way to make you feel like there's tension there that isn't, which is a really great filmmaking effect. And I love Amigo. I think it's the better movie than Murder Me Monster, but this is a very interesting, like erotically charged, vulnerable double feature.
Yeah, I love it. There was a point when you were talking about, I was just thinking about, other international cinema that felt like the movie you were talking about. And for some reason, that movie, like the cover got popped into my head. I was like, what is the name of that movie? And I kept thinking about it. And then you brought it up. I was like, shit, that's the movie. That's the movie. That was popping. That was the cover that was popping. That's very much a physical media thing. We, as growing up, going to the video store, you always remember the covers.
Yep.
And that just happened to me again. Covers saves the day. But that's awesome. I love it. If they're similar movies in that way, I think I'll probably get something out of Murder Me Monster. So, yeah. Awesome. Love it. Andrew.
Yes.
Please confess your secret pick as your double feature for.
I will.
Afterlife film.
Not an easy choice, like I said, because of the uniqueness of Corrieda and the uniqueness of Afterlife, and not so much in its thematic approach, because we've seen a lot of films dealing with the afterlife and transitioning to an afterlife and whatnot, but just the style was just so unique. And there were a few choices. I've been battling literally all day yesterday and all day today in what to choose, even rewatched a couple of films to see if they would fit, but I'm going to go with this one. I had a few other choices, but I'll go with this one. The movie that I'm choosing is A Matter of Life and Death, the Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger film. Like I said, there were a couple of other choices that I had in mind immediately.
This one, you faked me out. You faked me out because
Did I fake you out?
I saw your letterbox and you put Wings of Desire.
Yeah, the thing is, I rewatched Wings of Desire last night,
which would have been a good pick.
Which I think I'm like, okay, existentialism. That whole movie is existential, like to a T. And then I'm watching it. I'm like, this doesn't quite fit with Afterlife. Doesn't quite fit. The movie's still an absolute masterpiece. I hadn't seen it in a long time, so rewatching it was nice, but it doesn't quite fit. Then after it, I rewatched A Matter of Life and Death, and I was like, this film fits a little bit more. And it's such a favorite of mine. I remember waiting so many years for this Blu-ray to actually come out, and apparently I hadn't actually watched this Blu-ray, so it was a little bit of a double unwatched pile last night for me. But I had seen this movie before, and if you don't know, it's the Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger film from 1946. It's done partially in Technicolor, partially in black and white, starring David Niven and Kim Hunter. And what happens is it takes place during World War II, I think 1945, and David Niven is in the Royal Air Force. He's like a fighter pilot, and his plane's been hit and it's about to go down. All of his crew members have been killed. I think he's a captain, and he's radioing in, "Hey, I'm gonna jump out of this plane because everybody's dead and it's going down. It's on fire. You see the flames in it." And the person he's talking to is Kim Hunter, and she is, I believe, an American like Allied Forces just a radio operator, and they just start talking to each other, and basically he's like, "Oh, I'm glad I talked to you before the end," because he has no parachute, so he's going to evacuate out of a plane with no parachute. And they have this conversation to open the movie, and they have this immediate connection over the radio. So he evacuates the plane, and then you start seeing sequences in heaven, or what is perceived to be heaven as they're depicting it. And this movie is about stylistically the opposite of Afterlife as you can possibly get. It does have the fanfare, it does have the style, it does have all of the physical aesthetic flourishes that Afterlife does not have. So if anything, it's kind of a little bit of a yin-yang kind of thing going on here. But come to find out that David Niven's character was supposed to die in this plane going down, and he just didn't. They missed him. They screw up, a little bit of a technical issue. The person who's in charge of, ushering the souls who pass away from here, just missed him, I guess. So he lands in the ocean. He ends up reuniting with the Kim Hunter character just by happenstance. It's a very fantasy-like type of romance that they have, and heaven comes calling and is like, "Hey, you're supposed to be dead. You're supposed to be dead." And he's like, "No, I'm in love now. You guys messed up. It's not my fault." So there's this whole kind of battle between, life and death, and should he be dead? Should he not be dead? What is he living for? What is keeping him tethered to Earth? And it is his love for Kim Hunter's character. And the movie has a deep theme of, love is such a human strong trait that it can connect us to the living world. I find that to be incredibly poetic. For a hopeless romantic like myself, that feeds right into my tendencies as a person. But the movie itself is such a masterpiece of a well-made film. You have Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, two of the greatest kind of directing duos of all time. And the way in which the film is constructed, the way in which they switch from black and white cinematography in heaven to Technicolor on Earth, beautiful, astonishing transitions from black and white to color within the same frame almost. And it's so seamless for the 1940s that it's kind of mind-boggling how they were able to pull off such a technical feat as I knock things over here. And yeah, it's incredibly well done. Just a beautiful, beautiful movie. There's a lovely special feature on here that goes for, I believe, 30 minutes long or so with Thelma Schoonmaker, who was, of course, married to Michael Powell, one of the greatest editors of all time, discussing how this was Michael Powell's favorite film of his work, and how he shot certain things and what the inspiration was behind certain things, how the war definitely influenced him making this movie, and all that kind of stuff. Incredibly worth it just for this edition alone. There's an old 2008 interview with Martin Scorsese on here as well. He's a gigantic fan of Michael Powell and was kind of responsible for a lot of the restoration of a lot of Michael Powell's works and whatnot. Shot beautifully by Jack Cardiff, just a super awesome underrated cinematographer. This is, I think, just one of the best movies I probably own from the Criterion Collection, in my opinion. But yet again, it's dealing with this transition from reality or real life to the afterlife, taking a bit of a different tone with it, but still hitting at some true human themes. So that's why I ended up choosing it.
Awesome. Yeah, big fan of Powell Pressburger. Still a lot of their stuff I need to explore that are in the unwatched pile sitting over here behind me. Yeah. So, but anything else to add to that, Ryan?
These Powell and Pressburger guys sound all right. I hope they keep making stuff.
Well,
I wish.
I wish. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think they're long gone past.
Yeah, I wish they were.
I know he
still around
knows.
making stuff.
It's a joke.
Because the stuff is so like timeless. I mean, yet again, it's another like early, like Steven had a movie from the 1930s. This is a movie from the 1940s, still hitting on universal themes that are still utilized today. You know, in movies and TV and just in our society in general. Yeah. The movie also has an alternate title called Stairway to Heaven, which is a little on the nose, but I've always like A Matter of Life and Death a little more. Sounds a little more poetic.
Yeah. You should also, and then the third movie, if you do a double feature, you put Interstellar in there. Just a weird movie about how love is existent. You know,
I was going to say very similarly connected. How love is kind of the human connecting through time and space.
Yeah,
which is
fascinating
to me.
There you go. There's your triple feature. Matter of Life and Death is my favorite movie by them. I love that movie.
Right. I don't disagree. To me, it's always the Red Shoes.
I
think that movie just on another level of cinema. Like that's cinema with a capital C.
That's a good one.
Of course, we've talked about Black Narcissus before. I believe our mutual friend Celeste Lacabra came on here to talk about Black Narcissus, which was I think her Unwatched Pile.
It was her Unwatched Pile pick.
Yeah, because she was pairing it up a little bit of nunsploitation at that time. That's a Matter of Life and Death.
Awesome. All right, I guess it's my turn.
Okay, here we go.
So back to me. So I had some ideas. Like I said, I thought Addams Family would be an interesting because of the family dynamic, but I was like, that's not really enough. And then, so I started thinking about one of my obvious choices. One of my obvious choices was The Birdcage. I thought The Birdcage with Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, where you got, of course, at the center of the story, their son who is getting married to a woman who has a wealthy family. Of course, that's a reverse dynamic there compared to You Can't Take It With You. And, it's a similar thing of they're asking, in this case, it's talking about, it's talking about the lifestyle choices, like her family's this wealthy family politician, cares about their image. And, Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, they're homosexuals that live in a drag club, and they want his son wants them to act normal when they come to visit, which is something that You Can't Take It With You is not something that family would do, even though that was the plan. So, because like in that movie, they were supposed to come over on a certain day for them to act normal, but Jimmy Stewart brings them a day early, and it kind of throws everything off. And he gets to see the family the way they are. So I thought that choice would have been a perfect little, like, if you're talking about story and some thematic stuff, that would have been a perfect pairing. But I don't like things to be that perfect. I don't like my pairings to be that perfect. I tend to focus in on themes. And I like more most of the time to try to go more contrasty, something that might be somewhat similar, but maybe deals with the themes in a more complicated way, which is the route I went this way. Because I think the one thing you could say, and this is just mostly because I think it's the time that the movie was made in. It's a great movie. It's also doesn't delve into the ideas as deep as later films might delve into the subject matter. When you're talking about social class, and stuff like that, it doesn't go into that stuff. That it's a little fluffy. So I wanted to pick a film that delved into some of this stuff in a deeper way. And of course, we're gonna leap many years later. I didn't even do the numbers on it. It's a 2016 film. So I went with Captain Fantastic.
Oh,
is my
nice.
pairing. So Captain Fantastic stars Viggo Mortensen, and he plays the father. He has this family, huge family, as you can see in the picture here, and they're all living off the grid. They live out in the woods. I believe it's in like Oregon, and they're living off the grid. Him and his wife have decided to raise their family in this very off the grid, living off the land way. And, with that, the film explores the benefits of what that is, not living in the modern world, but also explores the disadvantages that happens with that. And I think that's some of the ideas that are in You Can't Take It With You that are really interesting, but don't get explored a lot. They kind of say like, you should be yourself and you should do the things that you love and not care about money and things, because you'll have more friends if you do that. In the movie, the rich guy doesn't have any real friends. There's a scene where they're in a jail cell all together. Then they have to go to court and they need money to bail themselves out. And the rich guy's like, I'll pay for it. But then all his friends say, hey, we'll pay for it for you. Tons of people that don't really know him that well give up, so like it explores the idea of that dynamic idea. But in this film, it more deals with like looking at the side of Lionel Barrymore's side of it and exploring the complicatedness of like, okay, if you're going to just do whatever you want in life and not really like live amongst what normal people do every day, go to work, pay taxes. If you don't do that lifestyle, what are the disadvantages of not doing that? And that's what this movie does really well, like exploring. It looks at how, him homeschooling his kids and keeping them from, corporate America. They're very educated. They're very smart. They know things that most normal kids don't know. But what is the disadvantages? Well, they're very socially awkward. If they were to live in the real world now, they're very socially weird and don't know how to live in society. And so, the oldest son in this film really starts to understand that in the film, that he's learning everything he knows about the world through books and not experiencing life. And, that's the combativeness that I think really makes this movie fantastic, is that it doesn't really take one side or the other. And by the end of the film, it understands that balance is key, is the key, finding some balance. And so I thought that this was an interesting pairing. And I just really love this film. I looking for a reason to bring this movie up, because I think it was a film that kind of has gone away after it came out. It was well received. And then it's one of the movies that just becomes a hidden gem, now 8 years later. So any thoughts, Ryan? Have you seen Captain Fantastic?
I've not, but I've heard it's wonderful. I have never been a Viggo Mortensen fan, so kind of put me off a little bit. I gotta be
Son
honest.
of a bitch.
I knowing what you like, I would certainly be interested in seeing it, and it sounds interesting. But I don't know, something about Viggo is always just seemed a little wet blankety.
What did you didn't you like the Cronenberg film that came out? Didn't you?
No,
I know you didn't like it. I know you
ear.
didn't like it. Crimes of the Future. Do you like Eastern Promises?
It's my favorite of his, but it's still like, okay.
You don't like Lord of the Rings?
And I've never been a fantasy guy. Like, I appreciate them a lot more than I like them.
Gotcha. All right.
Are you just gonna list
I'm gonna keep bringing up Viggo's movie.
You're gonna list off all of them? Yeah.
What's the Sean Penn directed early Viggo Mortensen movie? Oh son of a bitch. Indian Runner?
That's a reference.
That's a good movie.
I'm surprised you're not going with like A History of Violence, Steven.
I said that already.
You did already? Okay.
Yeah. You're not listening at all.
No, clearly not. Clearly not.
But what about G.I. Jane?
Forgot about it.
Son of a bitch.
I just added that to my collection the other day.
It's fine. He's gonna watch Captain Fantastic. He's changed his fucking mind.
Well, what's interesting about Captain Fantastic is like what you're saying, Steven, is it kind of came and went very fast. 2016, it came out, and I knew it made like the indie like festival runs, and people talked about it when it came to that type of world, but it really didn't catch on, any type of mainstream steam with Vigo in it. I still see clips of it show up on social media every now and then. Like there is the scene, I believe, like Catherine Hahn is in the film as well. And I think she's like either his sister or sister-in-law, something like that. And they have this debate about the education. Like, you know, she's like, "Yo, your kids need to go to school. You kids can't be in school." And then he basically just starts like quizzing his kids about like educational, like basic education. They're fine. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. It's kind of the scene of the movie that really kind of gets to the point of what's going on here. But like her kids, she's got two sons. It's his sister, is Viggo Mortensen's sister.
Okay.
And so she has two sons. He brings them downstairs and kind of says, "Hey, what's the Bill of Rights? Tell me what the Bill of Rights is." And both kids have very perfunctory answers. They don't really know what it is. And then he brings his 8-year-old daughter down and she starts reciting the Bill of Rights and then giving her opinion on the Bill of Rights. And like shows that, you know, what he does.
It's supposed to prove.
It's proving a point that what he's doing with his kids is not putting him at a disadvantage in life.
Right. And that does bring up a lot of kind of modern questions about the education system, modern questions about parenting and different philosophies, different forms of parenting and all that.
And another
kind of stuff.
aspect of this movie is that his wife, who has it's like bipolar at the beginning. And this isn't a spoiler because it's in the first part of the movie, but she dies. And so there's a funeral they're trying to make it to. And so her father is a rich man and wants to take the kids away because he thinks that it's child abuse what they chose to do with their kids. So that's another similar element in the sense of a dynamic there where there's a rich father on the other side that kind of compares with.
Yeah, and it's dealing with a lot of familial drama, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, a lot, and it keeps a lot of those things kind of close to the chest in terms of revealing like backstories and things like that. You just get a hint of like there's a sense of trauma that's happened within the family that has triggered this whole idea of going off going off the grid and stuff like that and whatnot. Reminds me a lot of that Ben Foster movie that came out a few years ago.
Without Leave No Trace.
Yes, Leave No Trace, where he tries to do a very similar thing with his daughter in that film, kind of going off the grid and whatnot. Different tone of a movie, though.
It's a sadder movie. That's a sadder movie. Yeah,
much sadder, much more serious type of movie. But yeah, that's an interesting pick, Steve. I would not have predicted Captain Fantastic because no one really talks about the movie that much nowadays.
These were pretty solid double features.
I know, man. Yeah. I keep saying it. I gotta goddamn get the list of all the double features we've done on the show because you have to watch them to know them. And at this point, of course, I want people to watch it to find out. But at this point, I can at least do a good portion of them, like half of them at least, and go ahead and post them out, so people can.
I'm just hoping you do that because I'm always concerned that I'm going to choose the same movie again.
The same shit. Yeah.
Like I think I almost chose something in one of my other kind of.
That's why I didn't pick the Birdcage. Also, is because I thought, did I use the Birdcage once before? I couldn't remember.
I think I've done this before. I was going to choose Kurosawa's Akiru, and I was like, I think I talked about this before.
Yeah,
this is such a 1-to-1 comparison to Afterlife that it almost felt too easy of a pick for a lot of reasons. The movie's literally called To Live. Like Akiru means to live in Japanese. And it's dealing incredibly with death. Incredibly 1-to-1 ratio with death.
Yeah. But yeah, that is the double features. That is the Unwatched Pile this week, this month, this year. This decade. I just keep going. No, but once again, Ryan, appreciate you taking the time, man.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Of course, man. We'll try to not make it such a long period between appearances.
Yeah,
because I think it's been I think you were on a somewhat early episode. I get so hesitant to ask you because I know how busy you are. So I'm just like. I'll wait a little while, but
I say yes to everybody. So
I know you do. That's why
that's
why I don't want to take advantage of it. But as always, go check out Ryan's stuff, man. He's as he said at the beginning, he's doing so much stuff. He's, I said it when they came out, like that zine you do, man, is just, it's on
cool.
another level. It's another level thing.
Yeah, that's really cool because that's an old school thing. You don't see a lot of physical, just magazines in general nowadays. I was talking the other day how a lot of the mainstream magazines from my youth are now gone. They're all digital now. And I'm talking like even something like Entertainment Weekly, which I used to get all the time. That's completely gone now, pretty much. But yeah, everyone check out Ryan's stuff. The Disconnected Facebook page is kind of pretty much how I keep up with a lot of what's going on in the world of boutique labels. When
I got rid of that one site, that Dawn one, whatever it's called. I got rid of that shit.
I don't. Well, I think is because Ryan has a nice comprehensive. It keeps up with everything that drops. Just in case I miss everything, because there is a lot that goes on in the world of boutique labels.
Yeah.
Especially not only here on Chasing Labels, but what Ryan does as well. It's a lot to keep up with. So it's nice to have a place to go check and someone who's always checking, double checking, triple checking because I don't trust myself at all. It's nice to have a place to go to and do that anytime you need to. So if anybody wonders where I get all my information from, it's pretty much from Ryan. That's how I compile my notes.
Exactly.
All the time.
That's why every time I'm Ryan, you know it, right? Like he knows the answer. Right? So he's like the encyclopedia here. I know he's got that thing. He does a lot of work, but I know he's also smart enough to know that he delegates work too. That's what smart people do. He surrounds himself with other good people. So that's why he can accomplish things.
That's why I do the awards with you, my friend.
Oh, I'm barely involved in that.
I was just going to mention, the Shelf Shock.
Oh, yeah, we should have said that. A very successful Shelf Shock this year.
Very much.
Yes,
so.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Yeah. I help. I pop in at the last minute and say, hey, you want me to do the video? I'll do the video package. That's about it. That's what I do. And
it was a big deal this year. We got some of our biggest reactions. I mean, Severin posting all of their wins with timestamps for everybody felt really validating.
Yeah.
Vinegar Syndrome Cinematograph posting about that. Arrow just shared that they won.
Did they? I didn't see
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Second Sight shared it on Twitter that they
Fantastic.
won. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was very successful.
And as always, there's complainers too. I've seen some complainers out there too. God, love it, right?
Well, everybody does about everything. I mean,
I don't understand what people don't understand. Like everybody takes like award shows way too fucking seriously. Like the idea of an award show, if anything, at the core of it is about celebrating the thing. It's not about who wins. It's not everybody wants to win. Yeah. It's physical media is way harder to narrow this down than actual movies that come out in a year. This is literally like times the amount of new movies times like 10. Like that's how many physical media releases. So you can't cover everything. And we just pick it, but it does become a populist thing. Like it's about what's the most popular and that's what wins. I'm sorry if you don't like that. Go create your own fucking award show.
Well, and the reality is physical media is expensive and most people can't buy the majority of releases. So they're going to vote for the popular one that they chose to buy.
Exactly.
That's the one they know. So
that's the one they know.
And we've said this, so many times, everyone collects differently. Everyone has different tastes.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of what you're saying, it's like, some people may stick to a certain genre, subgenre, label, whatever, and that's what they like. That's what their thing is. Some people are more kind of mixing and matching and all this kind of stuff, but not everybody's the same. Therefore, not everybody's going to vote the same. You know?
I mean, look,
collecting is so specific to who you are.
Yeah, I know from the first year that when we developed the first year, how important it was to make sure that the voting in that process was done honestly, and it's something that's always going to be probably tinkered with and we're going to try to improve that the best we can. A lot of that starts with the knowledge of the CSE. The more knowledgeable members and more members that contribute to that, the better, and that's something that will always grow with time. Stuff like this takes time to get better and better. But I thought this year had a pretty diverse compared to the first 2 years, I thought nominee wise,
we were very diverse this year.
Yeah.
Winner wise, less so.
I was gonna say, all the Haunts BRs cleaned up.
Yeah, that was expected. As soon as that was announced,
Yeah.
I knew that
Hit
was
your
Turn all the
cleaned up.
awards over.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, Vinegar Syndrome is the most popular label. And so it wins a handful of everything.
Yep.
And you know what? Hey, you can change that with your votes. If you get more people to vote for what you if you don't like Vinegar Syndrome, like help us grow it.
And to be honest, Vinegar Syndrome didn't win that much this year. They won Best Label because they're the most popular, but not many of their releases won.
Yeah. Really, it was all the haunts just killed everything.
Severin usually has that one kind of big release. I believe wasn't
They
last
own the
year
box
was
sets.
They're their box set. Yeah.
Last year was Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, that's what I couldn't remember. Last year was Emmanuel. This year, All the Haunts Be Ours. The year before that, I think, was the first All the Haunts Be Ours set.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like they got that one like kind of nuclear bomb every year that kind of just like just drops on everyone. But it's also about like with a lot of these labels, I find like marketing is a big thing in terms of being constantly in people's like awareness area. Because sometimes some labels tend to, they drift in and out, or they don't market in the places that people are looking at the most. I mean, social media is so wide open.
I thought the addition of the small slate
category
was a good idea. Yeah.
Because
shout out to Deaf Crocodile for winning that one. That was a big deal.
What's interesting is they're small, but they put out a lot of stuff.
It was borderline. They're getting borderline close.
Next year, they will not qualify for that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say
you know better than we do because you do work with them.
Yeah, they've announced stuff for like a while. I remember a couple of months ago they announced a whole list of upcoming things, which some have already come out, but there was like a whole plethora of stuff that still needs to come out. So yeah, they'll be unqualified next year just because sheer weight of things they've got to come out.
Yes, it's about recognizing the contributions, whether labels acknowledge each other's works as well. Yeah, it's it's a celebration, guys. I mean,
very much so. It's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah, so I hope people can just understand that, and at the basis of the people that put this on, Ryan doing all this work, it's for no money at all. It's for nothing. It's for nothing. It's for nothing, guys. You don't understand. We're not paying people everybody that's involved in it, that do all these videos and do all this work. I make all these videos. It's for nothing. It's for your entertainment. It's for fun.
I will say the week of the award show, I did not calculate to the minute, but I had over 60 hours of editing videos in 1 week.
Yeah. Hear that, people.
It's a lot.
And he works the normal job.
Yes. I'll say also, special shout out to your co-host this year as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle
did a great job.
Michelle did a great job. I think it was her first time I really had seen her on screen before. So that's a lot of pressure to do that, especially because it's a long form show. To keep up the energy to do that, if you're not in practice, do it. It's tough.
That's why I stopped doing Chasing Labels. I lost the energy to do the show with you.
I'll be honest. I'm doing 3 to 4 hour shows.
He's doing longer shows than we were doing together.
Yeah, I don't know how this just keep happening. By the way,
I know how.
I can tell you this upcoming show is going to be another long one because this Saturday will be the Vinegar Syndrome and partner label announcements. So that's always a longer show in general because
Friday will be Arrow, Monday will be Scream Factory.
Yeah, it's the last week of the month as well, which is always everybody crams in everything here at the end.
Yep.
And then you got the first couple of days of the new month which is dominated, like I said, by Vinegar Syndrome and the partner label.
Perfect storm.
So the next episode of Chasing Labels will probably be Tuesday, which is the date that I don't know at this point.
And then a couple days later, Disconnected will also be covering it.
Yes.
Tuesday is March 4th.
Yep, Tuesday, March 4th will probably be. Just gives me that extra day, depending on what Vinegar Syndrome drops on Saturday.
Yeah.
So that would be what we have upcoming for Chasing Labels. And of course, next month we'll have another Unwatched Pile.
Yeah.
Stephen will figure out the scheduling for that because I can't think that far ahead.
Yeah, I get somebody on here. If not, it'll just be me and you again. But thanks again, Ryan. Thanks for
thank you.
taking the time. It is my birthday, March 11th, so I'm expecting a bunch of presents to be sent, physical media presents. I'll give a list. You guys can send me movies.
Drop a wish list. There you go.
I'm still waiting on your package to arrive for last month. As soon as I get that, I'll send yours out.
Okay. All right. So thanks everybody. Go follow Ryan at the Disconnected. He's got a Patreon as well. I know he's got a big Discord that is very, very lively over there. So
well, not only that, the Patreon right now, I should say, I don't know how political we want to get on this. It's a really, really rough time for me right now, being a Fed that works for immigration. My job is certainly in question, and some of the boutique labels have stepped up and offered some gifts. And if you sign up and pay for a year in advance at the $12 level or above on my Patreon, we are sending out some like out of print items. I got some autographed items on a list to choose from. I've got stuff from overseas that you can't find anymore to choose from. Say the word, sign up and pay for a year in advance, and I will get you the list, and we will get you something great into your mailbox very quickly. So check that out.
That sounds fantastic.
That sounds cool.
Please do that. I might do it, man. I want to get.
Sounds pretty good.
Stuff with it. Somebody just got 10 Deaf Crocodile Deluxe or 9 Deaf Crocodile Deluxe editions for signing up for a year in advance. No,
those are not cheap, and when they go out of print, they get more expensive. Trust me. Trying to find their early stuff is pretty tough right now.
Yeah, I want an autograph, Ryan Verrill, like first edition.
First edition of the zine.
The zine. That's what I want.
I can do that for you.
That's not a bad perk. It's not a bad perk.
Yes. Knowing the man, I can get one. All right. Well, that's it for tonight. Of course, this is on Chasing Labels. Please go subscribe to our YouTube. Also, of course, the audio form will be up in a couple days. So go check that out there, along with Chasing Labels and a variety of other things I'm sure we'll eventually do. But with that said, guys, get the hell out of here. That is what? You're done. Leave. Get out. Good night.